All right, it is Friday, June 25th, and it's a Friday, it's not a Saturday. We actually have a funeral to go to in California this weekend, so I am taking today off to get all of the work done around the farm so that we can get that round trip done here this weekend. So still wanted to make sure we had some stuff for you guys this weekend. So what I think I'm going to do today, I have one project that I want to get done with you guys, and we will be doing some irrigation. Before I forget, next weekend we have our live stream for the month of July, already July here in 2021. So would love it if you guys could join us. It will be at 3 p.m. Arizona time. I think last time we were able to figure out how to get that little premiere set up so that you guys will know when we're going to be on. So hopefully that'll be good for you guys and you can join us. So what we're going to do, I need to give you guys a couple updates. So we're going to head over here to the Shangri-La mulberries. If you guys were watching last weekend, or actually it might have been the weekend before, we were showing you how we're doing the air layering on our mulberry trees. The Shangri-La mulberries usually do really, really good. The challenge is we had record high temperatures for a week or so. Hit 115 to probably pushing 120 in some areas, and it pretty much killed off all of the Shangri-La air layers, which is really a bummer. So pretty obvious here. Kind of a bummer to see that, but the reality is it's really, really hot and dry, and probably not a good idea to do these in June. So we kind of learn as we go. So we're going to give this a shot again with a few different branches here once we get later into the summer and we still have that fall growing season to give this another shot. Now, the ever-bearing mulberries seem to be doing better. Smaller branches and that kind of thing, I think, is the key there for those. But that's the first one that we've seen go down here in our record heat. So I need to share another one with you. This one's really odd. I'm walking through the pome fruit area here on the eastern orchard, and I'm gonna spin around here real quick so you guys can see. We have all of the apple trees here in the background, you can see, are actually doing really, really good. And they actually start to kind of take off when it's real hot. They slow down just a little bit, but when it cools off even just a smidge, so we are down in the 100 to 105 range, all of a sudden they start pushing growth again. And the pear trees are really not any different. They struggle just a little bit more, so a little bit more on the brown tips and things like that when it gets really, really hot. But so far they're doing okay too. There's this guy behind me. So this is one of our Asian pears, and I believe it's the 20th century, although don't hold me to it. But it is really, really starting to struggle. I'm getting a lot of browning on the leaves, kind of throughout the tree. We've tested to make sure that it has plenty of water, and it does. No issues there. We've even done some foliar feeding on it just to see if we could try to save it. But you know what? That's about as much as we're gonna do. So the rest of its counterparts, including our other 20th century pear, are just fine. In fact, the other 20th century we have is pushing out a little bit of new growth and perfectly green. But this one, not so much. Whether that's a disease or just the heat, there's a little bit of new growth on there. And then of course, a lot of browning on the leaves, and it's losing its leaves. So, you know, we're not gonna do anything else. Everything around, the other trees around it are doing just fine. This one's struggling for whatever reason, but we're gonna see whether it survives. You know, one of the things that we do here on the farm, you know, obviously we test a lot of things out, but at the same time, we know there's certain things that do well. And if we have a tree like this that's struggling on its own, I'm not gonna baby it and try to deal with that for the rest of its life, and potentially mine. So it needs to survive just like the rest of the trees here in the same environment, same planting, same area, same irrigation. Everything else is the same. This one's struggling and they're not, so you know what? This one has to figure it out. While we're here on this side, let's go and talk about some of the good things. So obviously we've got those couple things that failed. We had the failure on the air layer. We had the failure so far on that pear tree. We'll kind of see how it does. But I'm here next to one of the apple trees. In fact, this one is one of the tropic sweet apples actually. And you'll see here, we had record temperatures. This is obviously in full sun. This tree is less than a year old. You can see how well it's doing. It's growing great. And you know what? It's got brand new growth at the tips. The rest of the apple trees, that's not an anomaly. They're all doing the exact same thing. They look really good, they're performing well, they're growing well. And we even have some of the trees that are not from Reed that we got that are actually doing great as well. This one here is one of the Einsteimers, and I'll get a closer up on that. You'll see brand new growth at the tips of this as well. Based on that air layering that's kind of failing, and also the way some of our fig trees look, we are increasing the watering just a bit, which is actually hasn't started quite yet. It's going to start this week, and unless we get some good monsoons, we had one roll through this week, but all we got were sprinkles. So unless we get some good solid water, I am increasing the irrigation. Part of the reason is these fig trees. So all of them except for a couple have started to get some yellowing leaves, and you'll see that in here on the panache. And I have our mission fig back here, kind of the same thing. So getting a little bit of brown, definitely some yellow dropping leaves. And that is definitely stress on these trees. That 115 to 120 temps, that is just, and super dry. So we also were down in single digit humidity. The combination of those two things can stress trees like this out. They still look good. I'm not concerned about them as far as them dying. That shouldn't be an issue, but they're definitely stressed, and I need to make sure that doesn't continue. So we did increase the watering, so we're now watering 2 days a week as opposed to one, and we were watering about 60 gallons on each tree. Now we're watering about 90 gallons total in a week, which is exactly what we watered at the old farm, and the trees did well on that. So we'll see. They were doing fine until we hit that really, really dry, hot weather. So I don't know that that's necessary as far as that amount of water, but I don't want to take any chances. One other thing I want to show you while I'm on this side of the farm is we need to take a look at this sorghum. It's doing really, really good, and we had dropped back to watering once a day this week, and we got some just crazy winds, and it was still 110, 115 degrees, just really drying out the leaves badly. So we've gone back to watering twice a day, heavier in the morning and lighter in the evening, just to make sure it's getting plenty of moisture. And that little bit of extra moisture with the really hot weather has really made this stuff take off. We have a couple that are pushing 2 to 3 feet tall, and you can see just how dense this is looking. Just beautiful. Now, one of the things we did lose all of the cowpeas to the quail. So the quail came in, we watched him do it, ate every single one and every single sunflower seed. So all this is at this point is just sorghum, which did survive that onslaught, but overall looks really good. And speaking of sunflowers, I'm over here next to the chicken coop and run, and you can see the sunflowers have flowers on them. They look amazing. I think I've got some close-up footage of the bees, but the bees are just swarming these beautiful yellow flowers. I really love the way the yellow and color and green is up here against the chicken coop and run. And of course, once these are taller, it'll give some additional shade, but more importantly, it's growing feed for our chickens. Now, the cowpeas are actually doing really well down in there in amongst the bottom of these sunflowers, and of course, that's pumping nitrogen into the soil for us to help these guys grow better, but you guys need to see the bee activity on here. But just seeing the bees, got some of them that just have their legs loaded with pollen, doing a great job of pollinating and grabbing that pollen to go back and make some wonderful honey for probably just bees. I doubt this is from a hive, at least not one that I know of. We are going to be doing some irrigation. Specifically, we are going to be running irrigation to the potted trees that we have in the vineyard garden. Okay, so I'm here next to one of our rose bushes. We have 4 potted trees or plants around the vineyard garden area. And what I want to do today is I want to get some irrigation run to these potted trees basically. So now this irrigation is very, very simple. I'll show you guys what I'm doing as best I can, step by step, because I don't have Lori here with me. But I want to make sure you guys can see a simple way to water your potted plants. I'll be pulling off of our vineyard watering system, which is a 1/2 inch poly drip line. You'll see it at about a 2.5 foot level here. So what I'm going to be doing first, after I remove all the wood chips out of the way, is I'm going to be basically tapping into that and then running the 1/2 inch line underground up to the pot. We have this 1/2 inch strip attached with basically some little twist ties here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna untie this section here of my irrigation so that I can easily put one of these on. This is basically just a compression coupling for a 1/2 inch strip line. So I'm gonna basically push this onto the 1/2 inch here. That way I have it pointing down. So I have the 1/2 inch line that's gonna point down towards the ground. One thing I should mention, we use this little end cap here. This is the end of this line on the vineyard. So I'm able to basically just take this off and flush the line to make sure that I don't have any water that I'm dealing with here at where I'm making the cut. So this coupling just basically is gonna squeeze right on there. Now, it doesn't need to be on very far. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make sure that I'm squared up basically with the T so it looks a little cleaner when you're looking at it. So that looks about right to me. And all I do is just kind of give it a tug, make sure it's not gonna come apart on either side. And I think I'm in pretty good shape there. I need to grab some actual drip line, get this connected. So I'm gonna connect it here with some line. I'm definitely gonna take some of these twist ties and connect it here to the T-post though to make this kind of a nice clean look coming down off the vineyard here. I'm gonna bring this 1/2 inch line, you can see it just comes in very easily. I'm gonna come up against my pot about here, and then I'm gonna install an elbow right here so that I get a 90-degree angle coming up to the pot. I've got my water basically coming to this point, so I'm gonna make a cut right about here or so. I'm gonna install another elbow to basically direct the irrigation line into the pot right here. Test for the height. I can always drop the bottom a little bit if I need to. Then I just take another pipe and connect it to the elbow. And I don't need a whole lot of this 1/2 inch hose up here in this pot, but I want to make sure I have plenty of space to add additional emitters at a later time if I want to. And I can also just run my actual drippers off of this line if I wanted to. So I'm gonna give myself probably about a foot or so, maybe 1.5 feet. And this is what the end cap looks like. So you're able to just basically unscrew it and flush the line. And that's the completed piece there. And now I want to show you the last part. So now with this, you have options. You can directly install drip emitters onto this 1/2 inch tubing. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna use some 1/4 inch drip line. So this tubing right here, I'm gonna use a 1 gallon per hour emitter. Our grapevines right now run for 3 hours, 3 days a week. That'll give this 3 gallons at each watering, which is plenty for a potted tree that's this size, or in this case, a bush. First thing is gonna be actually making the puncture. Just like that. Next thing is gonna be what's called a barbed connector. One end is gonna go into the 1/2 inch tubing, past the barb, just like that. We'll hold it in. I've got just some used tubing here is what I'm gonna start with in here. So I always make a clean cut and then attach it to the barb. It's just gonna slide right on there. So it's gonna look just like that. And I don't need a whole lot of this because I'm gonna attach my dripper here. So I'm gonna give myself probably about 5 or 6 inches there, make a cut. Then I've got my 1 gallon per hour emitter. I like the flag emitters because you can actually remove the top and flush anything that might be on the inside that's causing any issues. That goes on just like that. So now I have 1 gallon per hour that's gonna come out of that emitter, but I wanna spread that out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take another piece of tubing and attach it to the emitter itself, just like that. And then I'm going to immediately fork it. So I'm gonna go about 1 inch or so away, cut that off, and I'm gonna use a T. So this is a barbed T. So you can see that right there. So now what I have is I have 1 gallon per hour that's gonna be split to 1/2 a gallon per hour on 2 different sides of this bush. Attach it there. I'm gonna estimate so that I'm on about the front of this tree with this in here. So I wanna make sure I'm in the right spot. So it looks like I can probably have an emitter there. And again, I don't need an actual emitter, so I'm just gonna leave that open. I've got an emitter here on the front of the tree. I'm gonna have one here on the back. That way it waters evenly in the soil, and it's only 1/2 a gallon per minute in each area of the pot. So just like that, we have automatic irrigation run to our potted plants. Got that one done. So I don't know, it's getting real hot fast. I think it's about 8 in the morning, and I think we're probably about 90, 95 degrees. So I'm debating whether to do one more of these or not on my own. You know, I need to make sure I never take Lori for granted, because having her here makes even simple projects like this so much easier. All right, so I was actually able to get 2 of these done. These 2 back ones are complete. Looking at the setup more, I think what I may do is actually go with a soaker hose. Usually I'm not a big fan of those, but that 1/4 inch soaker hose is fine for this application. Even if I get a ground squirrel or a rat or something up in there chewing on it, doesn't really make a difference. But it'll even out the watering. I am finding that this is not quite even enough, and I don't have any soaker hose on me. So I'm gonna order that, probably swap that out, and then I don't know when I'm gonna finish those 2 trees up front. One of the things for us this time of year is we really make sure that we pace ourselves when it comes to projects. And of course, there was only half of us here today. So I got about half of it done. But I think it's time for me to retreat into the house. I wanna make sure that I get this video edited for you guys and give you guys some content this weekend, even though we're gonna be out of town. And you know, I'll tell you, it's one of those things when it comes to all of us here in the summertime in Arizona, is you really need to keep an eye on everything and make adjustments where you need to. We're doing the exact same thing here. You saw that with the fig trees, with that pear tree. You know, obviously some of the other trees are looking fantastic, like those apple trees. All the stone fruit looks amazing. But you know, whenever I see some of those things, those are kind of the harbingers to say, hey, you know what, you need to look at something. And that's why we always pay attention to our trees, especially during the summertime, because the goal, of course, for all of us this time of year is survive. So just want to thank you guys for joining me today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. You know, today was a little bit different. This is one of our vlogs where we do that weekly to give everybody an update, but we cover a lot of things here on the farm as we put this raw desert land into production. Would love to have you here. Any questions or comments you guys know, leave those in the comment section down below. And as always, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you.